I'm not the same person now as I was 10 o'clock in the morning. I cannot stand for everything I did before lunch today. When I was at work, I had to take this. Somebody fucked up. I had to take this make a decision. I had to tell someone to change stuff like that. I mean, who I was then, I cannot answer to now. That was in the moment then. I made mistakes. Something of what I did was great, but some things that came out was not. So I think this whole thing of judging ourselves for what we did 20 years ago, that is insane.
Greetings, Legion. Thank you for tuning in to another episode of Into the Necrosphere, number 234. For the last several months, I have had many of you imploring me on the socials, anywhere where you can get in touch with me, to get Sebastian Ramstedt of Aphelion and Necrophobic onto the show. Well, we finally managed to get the stars to align, and what a conversation this was. Seb and I spoke about everything from cults to W.A.S.P, to how he manages to balance his life in metal with his day job. We only had an hour, unfortunately, so you can be guaranteed there's almost certain to be a sequel to this, but you are going to find out exactly why he is such a highly requested guest in just a few short minutes. Before we get to that, Dulle Griet are a band out of London who recently put out their debut EP of the same name on Bandcamp, Spotify, or wherever else you stream or can buy your music from. I love it, I think you're gonna love it, and that's why you're about to hear a track called Ravenous. Dulle Griet is the name of the band. This week they get to bask in the warm, fuzzy glow of the Into the Necrosphere independent band spotlight with their single Ravenous. It is taken from their brand new eponymous EP that is available on Bandcamp, Spotify, or wherever else you get your music from. I think it's a superb record, and if you head over to their Bandcamp, of which I will post the link in the description to the podcast, and you pick yourself out any music or any merch, then let them know who it was who sent you. If you are in an unsigned band and you want me to hear your best work, your best efforts, send me a message on intothenecrosphere@gmail.com. If I like what I hear, you'll get to hear it on the podcast in an upcoming episode. Speaking of upcoming episodes, stick around until my news rant later on this episode, and I'll tell you more about what's coming up over the course of the coming weeks. You will, of course, also be aware that I'm a member of an elite unit of podcast content creators. Some have called us the best thing to happen to podcasting since Spotify cancelled their contract with Meghan Markle. I speak, of course, of the horsemen of the podcasting apocalypse, and we kick off your week every Monday with Brandon Legion bringing you another episode of Horrorwolf 666. Yours truly casts hexes and slays poses every Tuesday on Into the Necrosphere. Sensei Mike Hill brings you an episode of Everything Went Black every Wednesday. We double up your pleasure every second Wednesday when Cheyenne of the band Trivax delivers another installment of Iblis Manifestations. And on a Thursday, Sensei Mike Hill returns alongside his co-hosts Sheriff Mike Scondado and Professor Jeff Kashid with Necromaniacs, the podcast that I will absolutely not miss come what may. This past week, they just did a fantastic review of the movie In a Violent Nature. It is always a great way to get yourself set up for your viewing entertainment over the course of a weekend. So do not miss Necromaniacs, whatever you do. On a Thursday and on a Sunday, we've got the Reverend Carl Hikara, the Sinister Minister, giving you a curated tour through the dark, the weird, the arcane, and the esoteric with Soul Knocks. And there you go. That's the whole gang. You get to hear us practically every single day for free. All we ask in return is that you subscribe, like, share, do all the great things you guys have been doing. Help us get the word out. Help us hijack the algorithm. And of course, on this episode, I mentioned the news rant earlier. Stick around after I've spoken to Sebastian, because there are new singles by the likes of Nile, 1349, Modern Rites, Bewitcher, I Declare War, High Parasite, and Nails ready to be rounded up for judgment. I also managed to endure 60 seconds of the new Caliban single, and spoiler alert, it sucks. Help me now in welcoming to the show for the first time, definitely not the last time, the great Sebastian Ramstedt of Aphelion and Necrophobic. So you are fresh off vacation, or are you like most of the Swedes I know, which means like basically July and August is just a dead zone in your calendar. You sit around doing nothing.
Yeah, I had 2 weeks now, and now I'm back for work for 2 weeks, and then I had 2 more. But I'm never sitting down doing nothing, actually. I think something is probably different in my brain, but I constantly work on things and kind of twist the reality I see and make it into projects. So right now I'm very busy writing the next Necrophobic album, actually.
Oh, really? Already?
Yeah, already. I didn't see it coming myself, but then we were playing this fall at I think we were in Holland, and in the morning, the riffs just started to jump out, and then that was like a stone starting to roll. So ever since now, I think I have 8 embryos for songs for the next album. They're not finished, of course, but usually when I have that, then I have the soul of each song, and then it's just kind of perfecting it or trying to get these loose visions into something listenable. So actually that is what I'm doing, trying to head home from work as fast as I can and sit down with the guitar.
Yeah. What, out of interest, what is work? What is the day job?
I'm the vice principal at the kindergarten, actually. At the preschool, so I've been working with kids ever since 1992. It was my first job, and for me, it's a very creative environment. I can use a lot of my skills when working with kids, and they are very open. I have realized during the year that when you play black metal or death metal to grown-ups, because of who they are, they get frightened, or they think something is wrong with me, or this is something unhealthy. But kids immediately adapt to what they hear. They don't try to push it away. They take it in and try to understand it. And I like that with kids, that they are very different from grown-ups, and they are very open to everything that lives give them, because they don't know right and wrong in that way. So I think my creativity it's a job where I can be creative most of the time of the day. But since a couple of years, I work with the teachers actually, and try to coach them into being better teachers. So in some way, I'm a natural leader, so that's what I'm doing. But it's a good job. It's a good day job, and I think it's pretty fun actually. And it's good to combine. Yeah.
The kids and the teachers, are they aware of of who you are, outside outside of your day job?
Yeah, they are, but I don't talk much about it, as I during the years I have not talked much about my job. It's a bit of keeping the illusion, the whole rock and roll swindle. In some way, it is a show. In some way, the fans want to believe in the possibility of having a career or be rock and rolling all day, all night. It's not like that, of course. It's you have to be at Slayer level to live from music, but they at work they don't understand the music, and because it's so underground for them, Eurovision is the big thing. And when they you play, do you get paid? Yeah, of course we get paid. Oh, but are you on Spotify? Yes, we are on Spotify. So
you must be rich.
Yeah, and then they say, have you ever written a song? And then I feel like let's not go into this discussion of all the albums, everything. And when they realize I'm a songwriter, they all say, well, maybe you can be in Eurovision. And
of course, that's the end goal for any black metal man.
That's the end goal of every musician, they think. Yeah. So nowadays, when they are you in a band? Yeah, but it's not anything you know about. Let's not talk about this, and they leave it. So, but I mean, black metal in Scandinavia is not really society's enemy number one anymore. There was a time, of course, in the 90s, but I mean now we have so many musicians from Norway, Finland, Sweden, even Denmark, and so it's a part of our heritage or culture really nowadays. That people are not that, they have to be really religious to frown upon it.
Mm. Well, I have, so my day job is literally about as far removed from podcasting and black metal as you can possibly find. I work at a very, very corporate job. I've got a very substantial size team that, amongst other teams, that reports into me based out of Sweden. And the interesting thing was having conversations with them. They would notice sometimes when I'm on a Zoom call, I'm wearing a T-shirt or something. And they're like, oh, are you into bands like Entombed and Dismember? And these are like straight-laced folk. And I'm like, how do you know those bands? And they're like, it's just an accepted thing in Sweden. People know who those bands are, generally speaking. They might not listen to them, but they know the names. I was also really surprised when I was at Inferno Festival, when we walked into the Clarion Hub Hotel. It's this really I'm sure you've been there. It's very upscale, very fancy hotel. And then in the foyer, you've got Emperor playing, and there's guys walking around in Burzum T-shirts and stuff. And it's like, this is quite different to the UK.
Yeah, it is different, and I think the further up north you get, actually, the accommodations are better, and it's like the culture is more important the colder it is. The government and society kind of sees that enough money reaches into it, so something can happen during the long dark. So that's when you go further down Europe, it's usually a different way. But that is Norway and the north of Sweden, and also Finland, to my experience.
Now, I mentioned the teachers and your colleagues earlier, but the kids, do they know anything about your music? Have you played them anything that you've done?
Sometimes I hear the kids say, I listen to your song. I know that you have makeup on stage. And then I realize that the parents are Googling me, but they are not telling me that they are, because and the kids give them away. I even had kids coming up to me saying, I want to be somebody with W.A.S.P. And then I know the parents has Googled me a lot, because they know I'm a W.A.S.P collector and stuff like that. So I think that's pretty fun. But I mean, I sing with the kids. I make songs with them. I teach them through music. So they know a bit about it. But I try not to get. I try to separate the worlds a bit. Actually, I think it's healthy to. I don't want this extreme metal thing to be my day job. I think that would not be as fun, and I don't. But I don't want the real job to be my main thing either. So sometimes I'm a teacher pretending I'm a musician, and sometimes I'm a musician pretending I'm a teacher. You know.
I know exactly what you mean. You need that. You need that mental reset.
Yeah.
You know, and again, frankly, if I were in your shoes, knowing you know what the commercial model looks like in music, I wouldn't want to be living in squalor just for the sake of being in a black metal band either. I kind of feel sometimes like I have a lot more respect for people that forge a level of success in their personal life that are in the music scene. And that success is separate to their music, because I feel one, it shows me there's more to that person than just the ability to make great music that I enjoy. But equally, I kind of feel like these people that are, you know, all black metal all the time, if you know what I mean, they're a little one-dimensional, and I kind of feel like they're not necessarily. I wouldn't call them tourists, because a lot of them stay like that forever, but it's almost slightly arrested development from my perspective. It's like, dude, you know, it might be cool to do that McDonald's job when you're 30 and you're playing in a band and going on tour all the time, but it's not going to be that cool when you're 70 doing the same shit.
No, it's not. And we saw that happening with a lot of friends. Dismember is an example where they really tried to live on the music during the 2000s, and then when when it didn't work anymore because it was not enough money, and they had to go back to the jobs they had when they were 18, like cleaning subway cars and stuff like that. And I never trusted this underground business enough to rely on it. So I saw that I had education, family, kind of a career on the side to have something to rely on if it doesn't work. And also this thing about being one-dimensional and true. I think some people are one-dimensional, and then black metal, the bad side of black metal, is a good thing to them, because you don't really have to think. You just have to cling to the bad side of humanity. What is bad, what is evil. It's easy. The rules are very clear. How you look, how you dress, what you speak about, how the song should be. To me, I think I have tried. I have had periods. I mean, I have been 17 years old also, and I have been playing. When I played in Niflheim, for example, for many years, we were deep in the core of black metal, and I think at a time I was one-dimensional. It was not something I pretended to be, but I was for a couple of years, but I could not stay in it. That is not how my mind works, and now I'm 52 years old, and frankly, I don't really care to try to belong here and there. And for me, I think that is more of the core of black metal, of really going your own way, no matter what the consequences. I think that is the core of it all.
I absolutely agree with that. I think the one of the real pivotal moments for me in or seeing something that really crystallized that attitude. I remember the the documentary with, I think it was the one that Vice did with Gall, where he's sitting drinking the wine, and they're like, asking, you know, what does black metal mean to you? And he's like, Satan. I was like, what does Satan mean to you? Freedom. But that's such a loaded comment to make, freedom, because I think what he was inferring was creative freedom. But I think if you look at how he's lived his life since, I think he was also talking spiritual and personal freedom. I very much buy into that. And again, as I've done this podcast now, I mean, this is going to be episode 234. I think the people that I hit it off with most, and the people that whose music I tend to like most, but also who I get on best with as people, are people that really embrace that freedom piece. They're not afraid to be authentic. They're not afraid to turn the volume up on the entirety of their personality. If that makes sense.
Yeah, of course. And I think, I mean, it's more or less the newcomers that try to relive what we did in 1993. I mean, but all of us that was there, we have changed. We are not. It's very few of us that cling to the exact same beliefs all the time.
Well, it would also be insane if everybody clinged to the exact same beliefs. You know, and I've mentioned this recently on another episode. If I consider myself at the age of 20 versus the person that I became at the age of 30, and again at the age of 40, it is vast steps forward in the evolution of my personality, the evolution of how I approached life, my values, everything like that. There's core things that are similar. But I do think, a lot of the folks that I would regard as perhaps not necessarily in the scene, but certainly tourists or observers of the scene, they have a very selective way in which they revise metal history. And one of them is, I was at Inferno, I was on a panel where we were talking about hate speech in black metal. And the person or one of the people on the panel was referring to something that Hellhammer said in 2007 on the Until the Light Takes Us documentary. And I sat there thinking to myself, 2007 is 18 years ago, 17 years ago, however long it was. It's like a man lives a lifetime during that period. Are you honestly saying to me that if there was no action to follow through with whatever edgy shit that he was saying at the time, that he really still thinks that way? You can go back to bands like W.A.S.P. I mean, like you had a guy running around on stage with a chainsaw for a codpiece, singing the most misogynistic stuff on the face of the earth. But was that actually him? Absolutely not. I wouldn't suggest that from everything I've seen about Blackie Lawless.
I want to take that further and to the extreme. I'm not the same person now as I was 10 o'clock in the morning. I cannot stand for everything I did before lunch today. When I was at work, I had to take this. Somebody fucked up. I had to take this make a decision. I had to tell someone to change stuff like that. I mean, who I was then, I cannot answer to now. That was in the moment that I made mistakes. Something of what I did was great, but some things that came out was not. So I think this whole thing of judging ourselves for what we did 20 years ago, that is insane. And we have to realize that man can be good and bad at the same time. I mean, everything I do is not good. Everything I do is not bad. I'm kind of a good father, but sometimes I'm a very lousy friend. But that doesn't make me a good or bad person. It's just that some things I'm bad at and some things I'm good at. And we, especially in black metal, so much provocative things have been said just to stir up a reaction. I mean, yes. I think Euronymous, he said that he wanted to provoke. He wanted society to react. He did not want to be in the dark. He did not want to be like a misanthrope hiding away from. He wanted the streets to point and scream at him. That's a bad person. He was longing for attention. And so many of us that were in our late teens also were. And we said all kinds of things that I mean, this is a sensitive thing, but this whole right wing, I mean, in the 80s and in the 90s, people were afraid of the devil. They were really afraid of the devil. So artists like Ozzy Osbourne and Ron James Dio, and they said, this is an image. We do not worship the devil. We really do not. And I think when that was not so provocative anymore, these political issues came in where people said extreme things for the case of being extreme, just like the punks in London were t-shirts with forbidden symbols on, just to stir up reaction, not from who the symbols were pointing at, but from their parents, from society. And look at it, this is a bad thing. And I think so many extreme things were said to stir up reaction, but very few stood for these things. I mean, we cannot make 40-year-old people or 50-year-old people take responsibility for what their 17-year-old version of them said. It was bad, of course, but I mean, you cannot judge them by that.
And equally, I mean, the question needs to be asked is, were their actions to match what they were saying, or was it genuinely just fronting? And in 99.9% of cases, that's exactly what it was. It was just people that were projecting an image and doing things exactly as you just said now to provoke. So this playing revisionist history and essentially saying that if you at any point did anything that's colors outside of the lines at any point in your life, then you are wrong and everybody who listens to you is evil, and how dare you platform this person and that person. We can go on about that forever. But I think it's absurd, and it always disappoints me that it infiltrated the metal scene, because you're slightly older than I am, but I know we share a love for similar bands from the early days. We got into bands that were being persecuted within that Satanic Panic era. And so we know how, important it is, for bands to fight for freedom of expression, freedom of speech, and that, the defense was always, this is entertainment, or this is art. It's designed to provoke. It's designed to, it's designed to be rebellious. I have to ask you though, you mentioned W.A.S.P Collector. So what is what's the, I mean, tell me more about that.
About the W.A.S.P thing.
Yeah.
I mean, 1984, I was into Saxon, Iron Maiden, Scorpions, and bands like that. And then Motley Crue and W.A.S.P came into my eyesight, and they had this imagery that took it further, and especially W.A.S.P. At first, it actually scared the shit of me, because the Swedish television reported of the show 1984 where they slaughtered a woman and stuff like that. But then this was such a strong rebellion against the grown-up world, and where my parents tried to be with me on my musical journey. When I explored bands like Saxon and Europe and Scorpions, they tried to be by my side, which I didn't really want to. I wanted something for myself. And W.A.S.P and Motley Crue and later Slayer and bands like that, they kept my parents out of my room because they could not understand it. They did not want to see it, and it became my thing. And I think W.A.S.P, I missed the concert in Stockholm 1984 by a week. I was at the Power Slave tour actually 2 weeks later. I saw Motley Crue on the Shout to the Devil tour and Maiden, but I missed W.A.S.P. And that is kind of a hole in my soul, because W.A.S.P was maybe the most important band for who I am today. What I try to recreate on stage is, I do not try to mimic a Mayhem gig. That is not what I do. But I really try to bring the same energy that W.A.S.P had at the Live at the Lyceum concert. That is when I go out on stage, it's like, let's hope that this show comes close. So it's damn important to me. And since I missed that gig, I tried to collect as many pieces of the puzzle around it. So I have traced the albums that was signed right there in Stockholm. I have bought photos that is not published from the gig that only I have, stuff like that, and of course I have bootlegs of the concert and stuff like that. But it's something. It's a hole really that I try to fill. I want to be there, but I cannot because I cannot travel back in time. But at least I can try and build a portal of some sort.
Yeah, and I mean, seeing them now, I don't have the aversion to the backing tracks that a lot of other people have. I kind of agree with what Blackie says. If you're presenting the show and people are enjoying it, then who gives a shit. But I watched that Chris Holmes documentary a while back, and I kind of feel the same way as you do. I mean, I was a bit too young to see them in 1984. I would have been 4 years old, but they were fucking wild. Like you see those clips from those old shows. I mean, Chris Holmes has this just complete outlaw, like this. It's this chaotic, anarchic, like almost punk way of playing guitar, but he's playing very technical guitar. And then you've got Blackie, who is doing vocals that to me, it just wiped the floor with almost anybody else. I wasn't really ever into that glam scene very much, but I mean, there was no one that sounded like him. Like it was genuinely, I totally agree with what you were saying about it. It's sounding scary. It was genuinely rebellious, sinister music. I remember even hearing Sleeping in the Fire for the first time, and I was like, oh my God, this is like, I might have heard Shout at the Devil or Highway to Hell, but this is the real evil shit. The first time.
Was some kind of energy to it. Blackie himself, he said that like in the 2000s, he was in a bar having a meal, and they put on this Live at the Lyceum concert on the video screen of the bar, and he, for the first time for like 20 years or something, he looked on the show, and then he saw the fire in their eyes. He saw the fury and the fire and the energy, and he realized why the magazines and why the newspapers and why there were protesters. He suddenly realized why they stirred up so much emotions, because his younger self really frightened himself, and it is something they had 1983 to 1984. They had an energy that no one else had. I mean, Venom tried to have that, but they were too much fun, really. But W.A.S.P, they were the fucking real thing for 2 years. It's so intense.
100%. And again, what Blackie does brilliantly with his voice that no one can replicate is that it's like a scream, but he's singing at the same time. And
it's insanely high pitch.
Yeah, 100%. And like as the albums, I would say up to and including the Crimson Idol, he just got better and better. I feel like his voice got more and more intense on every record.
Yeah, it really did. He was a fantastic singer during the 80s. I still think he is doing the albums good. He's using his old voice in a good way, but it's because he really is a very, very talented musician and a songwriter. He's so good. But W.A.S.P can never really recover from those first years, because half of us want them to go back to the rack and the meat throwing, and the other half don't take them seriously. So, it is what it is.
Like some of the best bands to ever exist, across any genre, will always be bands that had this moment in time. That no matter what you do, you will never be able to replicate. I've said this before, but Guns N' Roses is a good example. Guns N' Roses. I'm someone who loves Use Your Illusion 1 and 2 as well. I love Appetite for Destruction. When you hear the new stuff that they've done, it's abysmal. You cannot, unless you have that chaos around them, and the drugs and the booze and the hookers and all that, you'll never be able to recreate that ever again. And it's kind of the same with W.A.S.P. You kind of need to have LA in the mid 80s, which was a weird, dark place, to be able to, really capture that feel that they had on those early records.
But it is pretty interesting, this whole thing, because when it comes to music, we want it to be real, but I mean, writing books or writing songs or doing movies, it's really, if you want it or not, but it's a part of the entertainment business. We are backed up by record labels who want us to entertain an audience so that they can buy albums. But in order to really believe in music, we want the artist to be what the song says. I mean, we really want that. When we're watching movies, we don't necessarily need the director to be a killer that writes slasher movies, right? We don't care about that. But when, especially black metal, it's more. I mean, you can never take away Norway in 92 to 94 because they actually lived what they sang about. So, I mean, it gets real, and it is really important for us when it comes to music. It was important with Elvis, with Rolling Stones. It was important with W.A.S.P. It was important with Mayhem, and it still maybe it has loosened up a bit, but also the whole heavy metal. If everything is heavy metal, it has loosened. It has not the same edge as before, as people in our society are not really afraid of it more. So something is missing, of course, and we are recreating the old days, and the music sounds as good or better. There are more concerts than ever, but something is missing, or maybe I'm just old.
So see, I do have a slightly different view on that, but I immerse myself in a lot of new stuff that comes out and a lot of underground stuff, and I do think. Okay. I actually think the scene is creatively it's healthier than ever. Where I do agree is I feel like there's I do think there was something very special to music before the internet. You had the mystique of Blackie Lawless, where if you could get hold of 5 minutes of an interview with him, it would be the coolest thing on the face of the earth. Like you would watch that until the tape is fucking stretched to hell and gone. Nowadays, we have things like the show that I'm doing. I think that's cool in its own way. But there is excitement to the forbidden. There's excitement to the unknown. In some ways, the Satanic Panic was one of the greatest things that ever happened to heavy metal because it made it even more forbidden and more scary. It made it more exciting when you were getting into it.
Yeah, it was, but it also destroyed heavy metal because until 1984. There were so many good albums, and we sat down the other day, me and Joachim of Necrophobic, and tried which were the good albums of 1985. And all the heavy metal albums were watered down. I mean, Theater of Pain with Motley Crue was nothing. But then it also gave birth to maybe thrash and death metal and later black metal. But those who follow the times. Of the Satanic Panic, which all these bands, even W.A.S.P. did. So it's my favorite genre, which is really genuine heavy metal, kind of died 1984 to me, actually.
Well, I would say the Satanic Panic in South Africa was on fucking steroids, and it was. It never died out. I would say to this day, it's probably still there to a point. But when I was young, there were all these books that were being sold. And, almost every parent got one from the school. My parents got sent one from the school. There was one in particular that was very popular called Rock Music: The Right to Know. And then, the first thing that you see when you open it up is the cover to Highway to Hell. And it was, for me, it was like, okay, well, I'm going to check out this band, this Merciful Fate band. They look fucking cool. I need to check this out. And Dio, he looks like an absolute badass. I need to check this out. But it was hardcore over there. My favorite W.A.S.P. story is when I was in grade 8. The way school worked there, you had 9 different subjects. 2 of them you could select which subjects it was. I chose to what they call technical drawing. It's basically architecture. And you had to have this big folder that had that you could like decorate however you wanted, and that was your project folder. My project folder was decorated with a massive Crimson Idol poster that covered the whole thing, and it was the whole like him lying on the bed looking crucified. And one day, I noticed at break time, there's not a lot of people around. And I, didn't think anything of it because me and my friends always used to kind of go, to a part of the school that was quite quiet. It was a big school, big grounds. I get back and we've got technical drawing straight after break, and I can't find my project folder anywhere. I'm like, what the fuck's going on here? And my quote unquote girlfriend at the time comes to me and says, we were all asked, and this is a school of 800 kids. We were all asked to go to the school hall for assembly at break, and the head girl took out your project folder and said, I couldn't believe that one of the kids in our school has this. And then they all prayed for me in unison.
Really?
That's the kind of fucking wild shit that I grew up with.
That's fantastic. That's fantastic.
That, of course, made me just love W.A.S.P even more. So,
yeah.
Now, a question for you, and I know we need to get to in Aphelion and Necrophobic in a second, but if you had to listen to 3 W.A.S.P songs for the rest of your life, what 3 songs would it be?
Aphelion for sure. I'm Alive from the third album, Electric Circus, and one more that I need, maybe Love Machine.
Mine would be, mine is a bit more spread across the generations, but I would go The Manimal, definitely. Mantronic. And then it would be a toss-up between either the song The Headless Children or of the Crimson Idol, The Gypsy Meets the Boy, which I just think vocally is one of the most incredible things I have ever recorded.
Yeah, it's really hard to choose. I could even take Miss You from Golgotha. I think it's one of the best power ballads ever made. Yeah, it's so fantastic. So
how wild that he became a Christian, by the way.
Yeah, but it's people have their ways of getting out of addiction, and usually they have to believe in something as strong as they believed in alcohol or drugs and stuff like that. I would be more surprised if he had been a thinking, sober, hardworking, healthy guy for 20 years and then suddenly finding Jesus. But I mean, when rock stars that live this life I don't take it too seriously. Actually, they need to find something, a community as strong as what they had before.
I think that's a very fair point. And at the end of the day, do we want the guy to die of an overdose, or do we want to tolerate him going to church on a Sunday? At least he's not joining. And if you were wise to it, you would have known where I'm taking this conversation. At least he didn't join Heaven's Gate.
Yeah.
So because today is the day that you guys have released the Reaperdawn music video, and of course that is a story about the Heaven's Gate cult, which is the most insane story on the fucking face of the earth.
Yeah, it is. I didn't dive deep into it when doing the lyrics, but the cult and the way they went laid out or inspired me to write the lyrics about this. So many cults that are waiting for the light, and really the only one who comes is the Reaper, and it's I mean that cult specifically is the whole thing is so insane.
Well, so for people that don't know, can you set the scene with what Heaven's Gate was and what they believed?
In short, it was, as I'm not sure if I have got it all wrong, but it was a pretty young cult, and they believe that in the tale of Halley's Comet, if I'm not wrong, they believe that there was a vessel coming for the righteous that would get them. So God or aliens or something like that had sent a vessel for them to join, and they all dressed up in Nike shoes, laid down on the beds and killed themselves when the comet passed, if I'm not wrong. You know more about it.
Yeah, so the story goes, it's a guy named Marshall Applewhite and a woman that he met named Bonnie Nettles. So Marshall Applewhite is a former teacher. He had been fired from school for allegedly, having an affair with one of the male teachers at school. And, this was in the 1950s or 60s. So, it was frowned upon. Bonnie Nettles, former nurse. They coined this belief system that kind of blended biblical prophecy and the idea that the aliens are coming to recycle the planet. And that, if you're part of the chosen, and I speak under correction on this, but if you're part of the chosen few, then you'll kind of be raptured up with them. So again, it's kind of, in some ways, it sort of almost feels to me like it's riffing a bit on Scientology, or at least Scientology was riffing a bit on that. But, long story short, they managed to recruit these people from all walks of life, by all accounts, highly successful people. There was the, businessmen, the brother of an actress who was, in Star Trek. People that weren't. If you compare them to the Manson family, Charles Manson recruited drifters and hippies and runaways. But these were people that seemed to, if you just looked at their lives on paper, they would have a very bright future ahead of them, plenty of opportunity. Recruited them into this cult, and they remained in that cult for well over 20 years. So the cult started in 1974, and the suicides happened in 1997. And that the suicides were sparked essentially by Marshall Applewhite seeing Halley's Comet and thinking that was the spaceship coming to get them. And he then said to everybody, the recycling is at hand, and, effectively had everybody record a video where in the video they say, I'm being taken away. I'm being beamed up, I think is what they called it. I'm extremely happy. I'm doing this out of own free will. They drank a mixture of vodka and poison, and then immediately put a plastic bag over their head to, help speed along the asphyxiation. But it's just fucking insane. 37 people dead. And as I said, the thing that I find so fascinating about the story is it's not like the Manson family, where it was drifters and people that you think maybe could be influenced by a character like Charles Manson. These are people that would seem to, on the face of it, certainly they have their acts together.
But I mean, there's two ways. Either you take people looking for meaning, drug addicts, and they need Manson to fulfill something for them. But as a thinking person with a good mind, and maybe you're academic, when people speak to you, I mean, if someone approaches me that I at first can see this is not such a bright person, or this is not a very talented person, you can say that with art. I see something, this is not very talented. But when the person believes so much in it, then because I can take perspective, I can step out of my thoughts and say, if he thinks this about that, maybe I have missed something. And then if you're good at this, then you can get the other side of the population to follow you, because they feel like I miss something here. This is so bad, but this person thinks this is so good. There's something here I don't understand. That starts the interest, and then of course with a charismatic leader that really seem to believe in what he does, it's easy to lose track. But it is strange. The whole cult thing is strange, but this is stranger, actually.
Well, it's I think, firstly, one of the things that blows my mind, we just spoke earlier about Scientology. I mean, that to me is crazy, because it's a cult that's still effective. I mean, in my view, it's a cult, and it continues to operate very openly with total impunity. But then at the same time, I think if we talk about why people join cults, I think you've got a very good point. I also think that there's a lot of people that you could call it a spiritual hole or a spiritual vacuum of some sort, but you can see it in society right now. I mean, the fact that people place so much faith and so much trust in politicians, whether it's on the left or the right, or they place so much faith and so much trust in celebrities. It's there seems to be this desperation from people to fill the gap that they have in their lives with something, and it doesn't matter what it is. And I think in a case like Heaven's Gate, it's essentially a matter of timing. This person enters their life at exactly the right time when they're going through some sort of emotional, spiritual crisis, and that person fills the gap. And exactly what you said now, when you have someone who is empathetic to them, makes them feel good, makes them feel validated, and then on top of that, has such a deep and demonstrable belief in what they're saying, it's actually probably easier than people think to convince them of just complete nonsense.
Yeah, and also the problem we have today is that we communicate less with people that are here in my life. I mean, now I'm sitting here with you on the net talking, but my wife is in the other room alone. I mean, I'm here with you instead, and we are constantly in contact with people over the net, and over social media. We have all these cult leaders who can feed our feed with information and with thoughts and why we should buy this or why we should think this. So I think we don't see it, but we are constantly bombed with opinions, and also we are made to choose side. You must think left or you must think right.
Yeah.
And it's different, and we don't even see it happen. And all of a sudden, you think that this, you start to think about politics, or this leader is really someone that I believe in, and you haven't even searched for the information yourself. You were just bombarded with it, really. I mean, back in the days, it was family and friends around the table and a bottle of wine that we talked about. What do we want to do with our part of the society? How should we make the playgrounds better right here where we live? What kind of movement do we start here? But it's totally different now, and all of a sudden we think we have a lot of opinions about stuff, and opinions did not really come from ourselves.
Yeah, and I absolutely. Have you ever read a book called Chaos by a writer named Tom O'Neill?
No.
Just as I was talking about Charles Manson, I was reminded of this. I read this about a year ago. It's basically this guy who he'd been employed by Time magazine, I believe it was, to write an article about the Tate LaBianca murders. And this sent him down this 20-year spiral where he started to uncover what he thought. Now, I'm going to say he thought because I do think I think when you get into a rabbit hole to a certain extent, confirmation bias has a tendency to set in. But effectively, he makes a reasonably convincing case, in the absence of other data, or in my case, the time to see if I can refute what he's saying, that it was the CIA that trained Charles Manson. He was trained to manipulate and control these hippies, and I mean, effectively send them out to do bad things in order to undermine the peace movement. But just on the topic of online cult leaders, I mean, there's a lot of women that know that they've got ultimate control over men by just posting a picture of their ass on Instagram. No way you're going to get more worshippers. Incredible.
For sure.
Now let's talk music. I said to you as soon as I heard these new tracks on Reaperdawn that I immediately reached out to Katie and I said I have to talk to Seb, because it's been a very creatively fruitful time for you. I mean, we spoke earlier about you busy writing the new Necrophobic. But the last Necrophobic record that came out a couple of months ago, one of the best reviewed you guys have ever done. Reaperdawn sounds absolutely extraordinary. You must be feeling pretty good right about now.
No. It's a constant struggle, and I wish I could enjoy my music as the listener, but I can't. I was speaking to a friend the other day, and this this whole fame thing, or having an audience that are clapping their hands and liking songs, it's so shallow, and it does not the feeling of that, the boast of that, don't follow you home. And for me, it's the exact moment where I get the last pieces of the puzzle together on a song. And often I listen to it, and then I change the soul, and I listen to it, and I write another riff. And then when I have my hands over my head, although I don't know I have put them there, then I know the song is ready. And I think I don't quit until my hands are over my head. And usually when my hands are over my head, the audience likes it. But for me, that is the moment I'm living for. That is like it sends the dopamine away. It sends the dopamine away. But I cannot hold my records in my hands and get that kick. I was holding Reaperdawn, and I felt like this is the point where I can start the next project. But it's not when you were young, you were thinking, when the day I hold the number of the beast in my hands, I will be so proud and so happy about it, and I will listen to it. But it's not like that. And for me, it's a struggle. It's a constant struggle of getting the next kick. And when I'm not having my hands over my head, then I'm in misery. so and I don't know why I'm so creative now, but I have been ever since I started drinking 8 or 9 years ago. I have had this massive energy. Maybe I have ADHD or something. So, but I don't know. It's almost the opposite. I would wish I could slow down. I should be with my family, but there's another album in the back of my head all the time. But it's a curse.
I was going to ask you, how does that come? Because you were kind of, the way you were describing it earlier, it sort of sounds like the spark hits you, and it's just something that you have to get out immediately, or you might forget about it.
Yeah, and it doesn't go away. It's like where I get in another state when these visions of a song comes to me. It's like I have a feeling about what the song will be. Usually I have no riffs or anything. It can be a word or a melody line, but it's more of a feeling that I want to express. And if I don't work on that makes me I get in a very autistic mood. My wife and friends try to speak to me, and I'm constant in like another place trying to, and the only way to make the voices stop is to record it. And when I have the hands over my head and I push stop, then I'm free. Then I can have breakfast with family. So it's it's the best way to describe it, I think.
It's an interesting way to describe it as well, because like I said, I mean, you and both bands are on an absolute peak right now, as far as I'm concerned. Like I was saying to Joachim, they definitely felt to me like there was more excitement behind In the Twilight Grey than I could recall being behind a Necrophobic record for quite a few years. And it's not, because the quality of the music was bad. It's just because people seem to be really enthused about the band. There's a lot of positive energy behind the band. And then these songs you've put out by Aphelion is just absolutely top notch. I mean, moves away from what I've heard from there was almost a sadness to Moribund in my view. And this one moves away from that. This is much more gritty. It's much more it leans more towards the nastier, the severe side of black metal. Is that fair to say?
It's fair to say. It's a more intense record, but also the production makes a lot. I mean, Tore Stjärna, who produces Watain and other stuff, he has made a production for this, and that sets it. It's much darker, grittier than Moribund, really. And I think I trusted my voice this time. When we wrote Moribund, I needed a singer, but I could not have someone slowing down the process, so I had to sing myself because I had no singer that would work with me. When I get an idea on a Monday, I need him to lay the vocals the next weekend. As long as this hole for this song is open, we have to work while we're in the storm. So I decided to sing myself. I knew I could do it quite well, but I didn't really trust my voice. But when I heard Moribund, I felt maybe it's not that bad, and maybe I can do it much better. So for Reaperdawn, I sang my heart out, and I really meant every word of the lyrics in the, and I think it got more sincere, and also my voice is, I mean, it has a character of some sort.
I would agree with that for sure. I think that's one of the things that stands out to me about these new tracks. Aside from the fact that you also do one of my favorite things, you execute the well-timed voice noise very effectively. By which I mean, like, just at the right time. Only the most elite vocalists can do that properly.
Really?
But the ones that do it are the best.
Okay, cool. That's cool. Yeah.
Was Aphelion originally, was it a COVID project? Because I know you put your first demo out in 2021.
It started as a COVID project. We as in every relationships, you have ups and downs, and Necrophobic was working with Dawn of the Damned. It was very intense, and when COVID struck, we had a bit of a crisis. Nothing big, but we had crisis in the band, and I felt a bit left alone with my music. It's not necessarily true, but that's how I felt. And I felt also that all these years I have given all my ideas and everything to Necrophobic, and the day it ends, it's Joachim who takes Necrophobic because he's the founding member. But in reality, it's me who has written absolutely most of the songs. So I felt that maybe my music is trapped within Necrophobic that I have no control over. So I had a time I was a bit sad or annoyed or some bad feeling, and I decided now I have the time to do something just the way I want, and that is not that does not depend on others. It started as a solo project, so that was the original thing, and I didn't know if I wanted to make it into record stuff. I just wanted to write music, and I wanted to do it for myself. And when I heard that there's some quality behind this, then I decided, and maybe I should release it, and maybe it should even be a band. But from the beginning, it was just me writing something that would not be necessarily Necrophobic.
Was it liberating to be able to have that level of creative freedom where, like, even, it's not like Necrophobic is a band, I think, that would, I mean, you're not going to be able to write a power ballad, but you know what I mean? It's not, I don't think that they're particularly prescriptive with you about how you write music, but it is still an expectation because it's Necrophobic.
Yeah.
Is it liberating to be able to do something like in Aphelion where, it's your thing, you can do what you want?
Absolutely, because everything I write with Necrophobic is in the footprints of David Parland. I mean, he would never written an album like Ream Thursum or Death to All or Mark of Necrogram, but I will never write something with Necrophobic that I think David Parland would hate. He's the founding member and the founding drive in Necrophobic, and we also played for a year or two together. And I don't want to. It's his heritage, and I don't want to dishonor that. But and that means in Necrophobic, I could never write a song like Agori. I could never write a song like Luciferian Age. There's some things that I just can't do with that band, and so it was very liberating to not have to think about past Necrophobic members when writing music.
Mm-hmm. It's
something different.
You did, of course, have your longtime partner in crime with you, Johan Bergerbock. Well, you guys have come through the ranks of many bands. I mean, I think anyone that knows you knows the band. You guys have kind of been thick as thieves for the better part of 2 decades plus.
Yeah.
Why do you two work together so closely? Is it a bond of creativity? Is it a bond of friendship? What is it?
He was not in Necrophobic and in Aphelion from the beginning, but it seems I try to spread my wings on my own always, and then after a while he follows, or I make him follow. I mean,
because he joined. Apologies for the interruption, but he joined one album after you in Necrophobic, correct?
Yeah. I mean, I really joined Necrophobic before Dark Side, but I didn't play more than a couple of solos on the album. But he joined on the Blood Hymns. But he's my best friend, of course. But music-wise, he has the power to take my music from the living room where I write it and push it out to an audience. As I said, I don't care much about the audience, the feedback from the audience. I care about my arms in the air, and I don't believe enough in my own music to sell it. I know some people will like it, but I don't feel like, oh, this is a great project, some people will pay for this. I never think like that, but Johan thinks like that. He takes my music and he says, Sebastian, this is the fucking best. People would queue for this. Let's sell this. And this is a fantastic ability he has. He really believes in the product. And also, his and mine guitar playing is just so good together. It's so different from each other, but I have recorded the whole album, or actually, I always record the whole album, even his parts on my demos with Necrophobic and in Aphelion, and it sounds good. But when I take away half of my guitars and he redoes it, then it's magic. I don't know what he does. His plays totally different, but together, our guitars, it comes to life.
Mm-hmm. Well, my friend, I know you've got a hard stop, and I'm going to be punctual and let you go. So you've got 60 seconds to take a wee. But I just want to say thank you so much. This has been such a pleasure. I've had people telling me for months now that I need to get you on the podcast, and I can absolutely see why they did it. So I hope that I get to bump into you at some point, and hopefully in person. Yeah. But either way, I definitely want to talk to you again at some point down the road.
Cool, man. That would be great.
Excellent. Take care of yourself.
Take care. Okay.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Off the forthcoming album Reaperdawn, which gets released by Century Media Records on August the 9th, 2024. You just heard a band called Aphelion featuring this week's guest, Sebastian Ramstedt, and that song was called A Winter Moon's Gleam. Big thank you to Sebastian for his time. As I said at the top of the show, it's a shame that we only had an hour. It was actually my fault. I had something that came up during the day. I needed to move our interview forward, but either way, he's definitely going to have to come back on the show again. I think we could have carried on that conversation for probably another 2 hours without losing a stitch, but I hope you enjoyed what you heard, and make sure that you show plenty of support to this new Aphelion album, as well as to the new Necrophobic record. But yeah, Aphelion, something very, very special in my opinion, and Sebastian is a fucking man's man. There have been a couple of interesting releases that have dropped over the course of the last 2 weeks. I'm not going to go into any great detail on them right now, but just ones to take note of, at least ones that are up on my radar. The new album by Seth, La France des Morts, some great French black metal. We also have the Savage Winds to Wisdom by Black Lava. That has been released this last weekend. Black Lava, again, no strangers to Into the Necrosphere. Fantastic band out of Australia. And then also out of Australia, I am wearing their t-shirt right now, Werewolves. They technically officially released their new album, Die For Us, this weekend. And then last weekend, Krallis put out Inorganic Rites, absolutely superb. There was also obviously the new Iblis record. I spoke about that in detail. Yeah, it just feels like there's so much coming out at the moment. It's hard to keep up with all of it. But I'll do another proper review roundup maybe next week. What I wanted to talk about right now, though, is a new single that was dropped by our HORSEMEN associate, Matt Prizzo. And he's, of course, in Spells of Torment. He's in Conspiracy X. He's also in Sick, which of his 3 projects, depending on my mood, is kind of my favorite one. I like all 3 of them very much, but Sick is one that I'm particularly fond of. He's just brought out a new single on Bandcamp that I figured we definitely have to play, given Matt's support of the show. The song is called Into the Abyss, and this is what it sounds like.
This is
Into the Abyss is the name of the song, the project Sick, spearheaded by the mighty, the incredibly hard-working, and the extraordinarily affable young man known as Matt Brizzo. Great dude who has been on the podcast before, will definitely have to be on the podcast again at some point. And if you like that song, then you know what to do. Head over to Bandcamp, check out Sick, check out Spells of Torment, and check out Conspiracy X. There was actually a new Conspiracy X track that dropped today as well, so when Matt sleeps, I have no fucking idea. But when we can find some time in his schedule, maybe he'll come on for a news rant, maybe a full episode, who knows. Right now, my friends, if you feel the need to share with your followers on Instagram the pathetic simping comments that you have received in response to yet another one of your haggard bathroom selfies, then it's time to hit the bricks, because this is my weekly news rant.
A roundabout for judgment. And hang them where the world can see.
I mentioned at the top of the podcast that I would throw out a few nuggets on who's going to be coming on the podcast over the course of the next few weeks. Next week, I've got Matt Wilcock and Sam Bean of the Antichrist Imperium and Werewolves coming on the show. 2 hours worth of just straight caveman shit talking, as is standard when I get either of those guys on. Maybe a little less so with Sam, but yeah, there was basically something for everyone in that conversation. Of course, the new Werewolves record is coming out. It's called Die For Us. You can see me repping my Werewolves t-shirt right now. The album actually dropped on Bandcamp this past weekend. And I think the official streaming, as they refer to it on the socials, streaming poser site debut is the 19th July. But it is a tremendous record, and I mean they kind of like the de facto house band of Into the Necrosphere. So how could I not have them on? They also did shed some light over the course of our conversation as to the master stroke of sampling yours truly on one of the songs. There is actually a clip of an Into the Necrosphere news rant used as a sample at the end of the first song, and honestly, it's one of the proudest moments of my entire life. So make sure you check out that episode. The week after, I've got Robin Harris of Wormwitch. Wormwitch is a band that I discovered on the news rant a couple of weeks ago. Immediately reached out to Katie and said, somebody from this band needs to come on the podcast. I love this band, love the music, love the album. It turned out to be a conversation along similar lines to the one that I had with S.B. from Antichrist Siege Machine. Seems like I'm not the only one who grew up in a, highly Christian household, have some interesting stories and some interesting perspectives to share from that time. Robin, it turns out, had a very similar background to mine, at least in that regard. But that conversation turned out to be pretty deep, pretty philosophical at times as well. So another one that you most certainly shouldn't miss. I then have the great Cheyenne of the band Trivax, and of course, fellow horseman of the podcasting apocalypse, host of Iblis Manifestations. He's actually coming over to my house this coming weekend. If we've got some time, I think we'll probably record something. And I'm also trying to line up a time to speak to Jerry Currinan of the band Nightside, and of course also of the very good YouTube channel Ruta. So, he's a dude. We unfortunately never got to speak properly at Inferno. We actually, kind of had the fact that we were both at Inferno in common, reached out to each other on the socials afterwards, really hit it off. So I've been looking forward to doing something with him. That's going to happen hopefully in the next couple of weeks. So crazy couple of weeks coming your way, my friends. I am honestly blown away when I go over when I run through the lineup of guests that have been on Into the Necrosphere in 2024. It boggles my mind because so many bands where it almost feels like it's a natural fit for them to be on the show now. We're very far out of reach for this podcast 2 years ago. And it is thanks in large part to the Legion, who continue to make a noise on the socials, continue to evangelize the show, that I'm able to do these things. And I just hope you guys have been enjoying it. So, okay, let's head over to metalstorm.net. Check out some of the latest singles. The first one, a band called I Declare War, have a new single out. Pacific Northwest-based deathcore formation I Declare War are streaming a brand new single, Shadow Dancer. The latter serves as a first taste of their upcoming new EP, due out sometime in autumn. More details coming soon. I think I've heard these guys in passing a couple of times. Never anything that has been so good that I've, been stopped in my tracks and, absolutely felt like I needed to listen to it. But let's hear what Shadow Dancer sounds like. That's pretty dull, I've got to say. I mean, it's this is an all show and no go band, in my opinion. There is absolutely nothing that I've heard in the first 1 minute and 11 seconds to separate these guys from anything put out by Oceano, Thy Art Is Murder, Lorna Shore, etc. And I've had a couple of songs that I've come across by those bands that are all right. Thy Art Is Murder's last record I thought was decent, spoiled somewhat by all the drama that went around with, kicking out CJ McMahon from the band. But, I find deathcore to be just very lacking in imagination. Granted, there are a couple of bands like Carnifex recently that have been adding in some black metal influences and just a few little twists that maybe you wouldn't normally associate with deathcore, but in the main, it just doesn't really feel to me like this doesn't offer a huge amount of substance. Now, is substance the most important thing when it comes to heavy music? For some, maybe not. For me, it is, and there's just too many bands that I would rather listen to where I would ever give I Declare War more than where it would be more than a passing fancy. So, all right, let's move on. Conan confirmed shows in Canada. I noticed that because I've been keeping an eye on Scene Gen, which if you checked out the Conan episode on Into the Necrosphere, this is probably, I think, episode 145, thereabouts. John Davis was a good dude, and he had come up with this idea called Scene Gen, which was effectively a social media tool for people in the industry to be able to connect to various folks in different countries doing different things, whether it's PR, whether it's, booking shows, whether it's doing album art, whatever the case may be. It doesn't feel like that tool has ever really gotten off the ground. And I thought it was a fucking dynamite idea. So I don't know what has held anything up. But the website is live. You can go on there. You can sign up to a mailing list. But as far as I know, you can't do any of the the social networking stuff that the tool is designed for. So just thought I would mention that in passing. Do like the band very much. So if you're in Canada and you like Conan, make sure you go check out those shows. Okay, next up we've got Triumpha. They've got a second full-length single on the way, but no song. So not even going to bother reading the article. We also have a new track by Bewitcher. Of course, I had Matteo from Bewitcher on the podcast earlier this year. Very good dude. A song that they did that will probably forever be very high up on my rotation, In the Sign of the Goat. I mean, most of their albums have been really good. It's good beer drinking music. good, honest beer drinking music. But it says here, to promote their upcoming new album Spell Shock, the US blackened speed metal crew Bewitcher offering listening the new single called Out Against the Law. Spell Shock will be out on September the 27th via Century Media Records. Let's hear what it sounds like.
Out against the law.
So, if you exclude Matteo of the band Bewitcher from this video, there's two other Into the Necrosphere guests who make cameos on that clip. The great Scott Taysom of Cloak, John McKinty of Incantation, and that's only who I could see. Cool song. It's definitely got some very heavy Motorhead vibes to it, but with enough of Bewitcher's own personality injected into it for good measure, I like it. I mean, same thing that I said before the song started. This is good beer drinking music. If you've got the barbecue going, you hang outside with your mates, you want to have this cranked up nice and loud in the background. It's just great music to have a good time to, I think. Just on the topic of Scott Taysom and Cloak, a big congratulations to them for landing a spot on the Deerside tour that is taking place between September and October. So it's a US tour. No doubt most of you have already seen the announcement, but they're hitting the road with Grisioun and In Fury. And then, of course, Cloak. I think I've mentioned many times before my opinion that Cloak is a nose hair away from much bigger things in this industry. And this is a great step forward for them, in my opinion. They just need to get in front of the right audience, in front of the right eyeballs, and I reckon Cloak could easily be as big as Behemoth. That last record that they put out was just absolutely phenomenal. So, yeah, very happy for them. And pretty decent lineup as well. I'm not really massively familiar with In Fury, but of course, Deerside and Grisioun, I know them very, very well. So, they will rip your heads off, and Cloak will get you nice and softened up. Anyways, let's move on. Caliban, I Was a Happy Kid Once single premieres. I truly and utterly detest this band, so should I listen to the song or should I? No, actually, fuck it. Let's give them a chance. Let's give them a chance to vindicate themselves. I strongly think that I highly doubt that they're going to be able to do that. But this is the news rant. Let's not pick and choose what we listen to. The idea is to be spontaneous. It says here, Caliban present a new single and video called I Was a Happy Kid Once. The song title itself already fills me with dread. At the same time, the German-based metalcore force introduced Ian Duncan as their new full-time bassist and clean vocalist. So sadly, they've not retired those clean vocals yet, which is really one of the worst aspects of this band. But let's find out what I Was a Happy Kid Once sounds like. Boo. Absolute trash. I don't know how you could possibly, when you're a band operating at Caliban's level, put out something that is so uncreative and actually be proud. Actually look yourself in the mirror and go, you know what? We've put out yet another song where the entirety of the main riff is just single, just a load of palm muting and chugging, with, incredibly lame, clean vocals that go over it. But their fans lap it up, so I'm probably the fool in this instance. But that's just not for me. It's not my tempo. All right, Modern Rites have shared a brand new track. It's called Becoming. I don't believe that it's a cover of the Pantera classic, the Pantera masterpiece, Becoming. But it says here, Modern Rites use raw intensity to fuse industrial music, black metal, and atmospheric soundscapes. Becoming, the second single from the upcoming studio album Endless, finds the duo of Berg out of the band Aura and Johnny Warren out of Kayashi, masterfully combining ferocious riffs with haunting melodies in a captivating and emotive exploration of existential despair. Check it out. I did very much enjoy the previous Modern Rites single put out off this record, so I'm confident this is going to be a nice way to distance ourselves mentally from the drivel that we just heard Caliban churn out. That I like very, very much indeed. For some reason, I immediately thought of Meat Hook Seed and their album Embedded when the song was starting, when those kind of industrial influences were, or that industrial intro was getting us started off. And obviously, the song goes in a very different direction after that, but just as a side note, Meat Hook Seed, Embedded, what a fucking album. There's a song on there, and I remember seeing the music video on Into the Pit on MTV, Headbangers Ball, called Famine Sector. Just fantastic. But yeah, the song itself, I think, is excellent. They put out a single a couple of weeks ago. I had it on the podcast too. The single was called Endless. I thought it was good, but not quite as good as this. I mean, this is just really densely layered. It's atmospheric. It's dark. They describe it as having a haunting melodies. I would say spot on with that. Love the vocals. It's actually quite catchy as well. I kind of feel like this is going to be a tune that's going to be stuck in my head for the rest of the day now. This is top notch. Absolutely top notch in my opinion.
Recorded
You know what this also reminds me of a little bit? And if you've been following the podcast for more than 3 months, there's a very good chance I've mentioned this band at least twice. Red Harvest. There's something about Johnny Warren's voice that reminds me a little bit of the vocals on Red Harvest, and actually there's something about the whole vibe of this that reminds me of that too. And again, I'm here for it. That's a band that should never have broken up, in my opinion. I don't understand why we don't have a new album yet. They teased something on their socials like years ago, to 2018, something there or thereabouts. But for whatever reason, it's just never quite come together. But if there's a band that is willing to pick up the mantle and, combine that extreme stuff, that dark stuff with, the industrial, etc., then, again, I'm all for it. So, top notch from me on that, without a shadow of a doubt. Let's move on, folks. Autumn's Grief are unveiling a brand new single. I don't think that you should include the word grief. The only band with a name with a word grief in their name that I think is cool is a band called Grief Ritual. That sounds cool, but generally speaking, whether it's Autumn's Grief, Spring's Grief, Summer's Grief, it just sounds a little soft, in my opinion. But it says here, the Finns, Autumn's Grief, are unveiling a brand new single called The Absolution. The latter is taken from the group's forthcoming third record, Dead Among the Living, which is also set to be released on October the 25th, 2024 by Inverse Records. Album art is pretty nice. Name suggests the music's going to be shite, but let's hear. That's absolutely dreadful. If I want to listen to something edgier, I would listen to the second Eurythmics album. I think Love is a Stranger is a meaner and more aggressive track than the crap we just heard now. As a matter of fact, I go as far as to say, if I were to ever be placed in charge of a country, or ideally the entire planet, one of the first things that I would do is to ban music that sounds like that. It's almost shoulder to shoulder with the likes of Taylor Swift. I mentioned Wormwitch earlier. They've got a brand new single out called God Megan. We are definitely going to listen to that. As a matter of fact, I have heard it already because I know the whole album. You guys need to hear it because this needs to go up on your list of most anticipated records. It is fucking brilliant. It says here, God Megan, the third and final preview track from Wormwitch's oncoming self-titled long player, has surfaced online. The new music outputs by the Canadians comes out on July the 26th. Brace yourselves. I did mention it to Robin when I had him on the show. He's one of the guys that has mastered the use of the well-timed voice noise. You know, just the ow, or the there's plenty of that on the album. There's also plenty of this kind of crust punk hangover into black metal sound they've got. The album is incredibly hard-hitting. It reminds me of a more black metal version of Call of the Void, which is a band I fucking love. Another band that, in my view, should never have broken up. But it's fantastic. I said top 30. I mean, to me, this is almost verging on top 15. And I think you're going to understand what I mean when you hear the whole thing. But if you like this, then get ready, because the rest of the record is as good, if not better. By the way, I know they also have 3 albums or 4 albums preceding this. Those are all decent, but forget what you think you knew about this band. This is a whole different kettle of fish. Robin actually mentioned it when I spoke to him. He sees this as the first real Wormwitch record, and I'm with him on that, because it's not such a difference that it's unrecognizable as Wormwitch, but it is a big step up. All right, we got 2 big ones to listen to, the new Nile single and the new 1349. But just one thing I wanted to mention very quickly, if only to save you 2 hours of your life that you would otherwise not get back. I watched a movie called The Bike Riders this weekend, directed by Jeff Nichols, who also directed another movie I enjoyed very much called Mud. And when you look at if you look at the cast, you look at, obviously, Jeff Nichols is a man of some reasonable repute. Yeah, I mean, the cast includes Austin Butler, Tom Hardy, Norman Reedus, Boyd Holbrook. It's pretty heavyweight. But the movie itself is one of the most pointless loads of shit that I've ever seen in my entire life. It's basically Jeff Nichols desperate to make a biker movie, or desperate to make the 2024 version of Easy Rider, but it just falls completely and utterly flat. It's exactly the kind of movie that happens when the scriptwriter and the director is more in love with the vibe than they are with actual dynamics, characterization, character building, and actually writing a story that feels coherent, because it essentially just feels like a bunch of scenes pieced together. Oh, what would be quite cool is if there's some sort of standoff between the leader of the bikers and the leader of another group of bikers. It's kind of like that very shit movie from the 80s, Thrashin'. It's like the motorcycle equivalent of Thrashin'. So, like I said, save yourself the trouble and don't ever bother to watch it. It's fucking atrocious. What you should watch, though, on Hulu is, I think it's called Cult Massacre. One Day in Jonestown. It's about the Jonestown Massacre. Phenomenal. Absolutely brilliant. If you watch the movie The Sacrament didn't use the names. It didn't, completely replicate every single thing that happened there, but it's very heavily influenced by the Jonestown Massacre. You get to see the actual footage of what happened there. It's fucking wild. All right, Nile unveil a new single and world tour dates to promote their upcoming full-length offering, The Underworld Awaits Us All, due out on August the 23rd. Nile have premiered a lyric video for the newest single called To Strike with Secret Fang. Concurrently, the band also announced several tour dates across the globe. In October, they will be heading out on tour over in Australia. Asia and New Zealand at the beginning of 2025. Nile will embark on an extensive tour in the United States where they will be supported by 6 Feet Under, Psychroptic, and Embryonic Autopsy. Obviously, I've got some homies in Psychroptic. Not so sure about 6 Feet Under on that bill. I don't know how many people that are, desperate to see Nile are going to be particularly keen to see 6 Feet Under, but, I might be wrong on that one. Either way, let us hear what To Strike with Secret Fang sounds like. It's not just the song length, but there's definitely some hints here to early Nile. Nile of the Amongst the Catacombs of Nephron-Ka era, where you had songs like Smashing the Antiu that was only 2 minutes 18 seconds long. There's definitely a bit of a vibe to that. That kind of wind tunnel, almost chaotic, anarchic vibe. But delivered with precision. If that makes any sense. But I really like it. Both songs I've heard off of this album so far are, it's exactly what you'd expect it to be. But Nile is just not a band that really fails to deliver. You go down the list of their records. I already mentioned Amongst the Catacombs of Nephron-Ka. I think that's a masterpiece. Black Seeds of Vengeance, I think, is a great record, but I think it tends to peter off towards the end. In Their Darkened Shrines, superb. Annihilation of the Wicked, I think, to get another step up and is even better. Ithophalic, I think, was maybe a little bit too much of what we expected. Having said what I said about the song before, but it felt a little bit formulaic. And then I thought that, since then, they've put out 4 records that have just been fucking absolute tier 1. Those Whom God Detests is brilliant. At the Gates of Setu, fantastic. What Should Not Be Unearthed, magnificent. And then Vile Neurotic Rites, kind of an album that came out. I thought a lot of people were counting the band out, and then this record gets dropped and everyone's like, oh my god. I kind of get the sense that The Underworld Awaits Us All is going to be that way too, because there's not as much enthusiasm for this album as what I would have expected there to be. But again, that seems to be the deal with this band. People kind of count them out, and then next thing you know, they put out a record that just blows everybody's mind. Zach Jeter, I think his surname is pronounced Jeter, of Olkoth, the new vocalist. He's sounding pretty spicy, pretty tasty as well. So definite. Let's give them a top notch from me on that one. All right, next up, we've got 1349 announcing The Wolf and the King full length. I have spoken about this record. I was actually lucky enough to hear most of the album when I was in Norway for Inferno Festival, and I met Archaon, the band's guitarist, as well as Swartolv, my good friend. We did an interview, which if you haven't checked it out yet, it's about probably 10 episodes or so ago. Make sure you check that one out. But I'll tell you this right now, not to be in any way sounding as though I'm prejudiced or, biased, really. 1349's best record is The Wolf and the King. And they've got a reasonably consistent back catalogue. For reference, my favourite 1349 album up to this point, or up to the point of hearing this new record, was Beyond the Apocalypse. It came out back in 2004. I thought that it was the most fully realised 1349 record in that it had elements of the avant-garde and the dissonant stuff. It had, some really great aggressive Norwegian, just black metal tropes executed very well. Loads of atmosphere, great production. I probably would put second on my list Demon War, though if you look at Metal Archives, that's not necessarily one of the ones that's the most popular, but either way, Beyond the Apocalypse, Demon War, maybe number 3 would be Hellfire. Those would be my favorite 1349 albums, but I believe that The Wolf and the King trumps them all. Every single aspect of this band's sound, they have just fine-tuned to perfection for Shadowpoint. It says here, Norwegian black metal masters 1349 are ready to make their return with a brand new studio record, The Wolf and the King, on October the 4th, 2024, via Season of Mist, produced by Jared Pritchard, with sound engineering done by Raven, mixed by Jared Pritchard and Raven, mastered by Jared Pritchard. For a preview, check out an official video for the first single, Shadowpoint. Many of you will not have heard this, so this, my friends, is what it sounds like. By this point, any self-respecting 1349 fan has probably bust a nut. You can take my word for it. This is a top 10 record of 2024. Just phenomenal. I also noticed, by the way, that they have already announced 1349 as it seems like, if I look at the placing on the poster, as though they may be one of the headliners for Inferno next year. Inferno, of course, taking place between the 17th and the 20th of April. I have already booked my hotel, so I will see you there if you're going. But 1349 have been confirmed so far, along with Blood Incantation, Eternus, Seth, Abyssic, Spectral Wound, Bythos, who I'm really looking forward to hearing or to seeing live, Sin, and Violent Magic Orchestra. Definitely Spectral Wound, Bythos in particular, and 1349. And 1349 need to open with this particular song. This is a song that is just tailor-made for playing live. If you pull this off properly, it would just in my mind's eye be such a perfect way to get a show kicked off. But this is beyond top notch in my opinion. Love me that shredding as well, and I like the old school aesthetic of the music video. I just like the old school feel of the song, generally speaking. I mean, there's this definitely feels very kind of uncompromisingly uncompromisingly retro, but in like the best possible way. So phenomenal work there by 1349. Okay, moving on. Otherworld premiere a new song called To Decay in the wake of their forthcoming studio album release Tenebris. California's atmospheric black metal purveyors Otherworld present a second new track in preview entitled To Decay. Can't recall ever having heard Otherworld, but they are also on Deborah Morty, as Modern Rites were earlier on in the news rant. And as I've mentioned on several occasions this year, Deborah Morty are having one of the best years that I can recall any label having. Between putting out Ulcerate, Ecclese, and various other bands. So, they're very much becoming a mark of quality. Their logo is becoming an insignia for greatness. So let's hear what To Decay sounds like. I don't think that there's any surprises as to whether or not I'm going to think this is great. That is fucking absolutely brilliant. Hadn't heard these guys before. They have got out, I was just checking whilst it was playing, they actually have one other record that they released in 2015 called Syncretism of Gods in Men. And then they've put out a couple of singles after that, a split EP also in 2015 called Ghosts of Dejection. Thank fuck that Deborah Morty picked them up and are putting out this album, because this is fantastic. They do have, just as a matter of interest, a Christoph Spagiel logo, which Christoph was the man who also did the logos for Moonspell, Emperor, and then one of the most important logos that he ever designed, possibly unbeknownst to him, the Into the Necrosphere logo, just as a matter of interest. But this has, really everything that I love about black metal. It's got a acerbic edge to it. It's atmospheric. It's dark. I love that little unexpected touch to have in the kind of chanting voice, or it's a clean vocal, but it's kind of got like a Gregorian chant quality to it that comes in probably about 20 seconds or so before we just hit pause. The song is very long, so I suspect it's probably going to go through a number of different machinations. But let's jump to the halfway point of the song. We're gonna take it from about 4 minutes 50 seconds here where we're at. But the first 90 seconds I thought was top-notch worthy without a shadow of a doubt. So they don't mention it on the article itself, but the release date for this album is going to be August the 30th. So mark that on your calendars, folks. I think August, September, October are going to be some busy ass months. Really, there hasn't been a quiet month all year. But if I were in a band and I was sitting on a release that I hadn't yet announced the release date to, I might be tempted. I might be just a little tempted to hold off on putting it out until maybe January or February next year. Just wait for some of that traffic to clear out so that you don't get buried under everything else that's going on. But yeah, that sounds very, very promising. Dying Fetus have announced a European headlining tour. They're going to be out on the road with Chelsea Grin, Despised Icon, and Vitriol. I might make my way to one of those gigs. I think it would be nice if they could take Chelsea Grin off of that lineup and replace them with somebody much better. But Despised Icon live, great value. Never seen Vitriol, but I'm pretty sure they're going to be awesome. And Dying Fetus are Dying Fetus, one of the best of the best. Kanonenfieber unleash a brand new single called Panzerhenker as part of their recently announced sophomore album Die Urkatastrophe, due on September the 20th via Century Media Records. The Germans Kanonenfieber offer in listening a brand new single called Panzerhenker. It says here, the Battle of Cambrai took place from November the 20th to the 30th, 1917, and marked the first offensive in which tanks played a decisive role in the attack strategy. The British carried out the attack with the support of battle and auxiliary tanks as well as an intensive barrage. The offensive was halted by German counterattacks. With the help of anti-tank field guns, the Germans managed to take out a large number of the British tanks. J. Kruger, who was known as the Panzerhenker or Tank Slayer / Tank Executioner, that would be a cool name for a band, played an important role in this. Even when his battery was wiped out, Kruger remained as the last survivor at a field gun and destroyed up to 16 of the approaching tanks. When enemy assault troops penetrated his position, he attacked with a pistol and was eventually wounded and captured. Really enjoyed the previous Kanonenfieber record. Looking forward to hearing what this one sounds like. So without further ado, I'm sure I've mentioned it before, but if you've not watched They Shall Not Grow Old, the Peter Jackson documentary about the First World War, then absolutely make sure that you add that to your list. The song is cool. Kind of reminds me a bit of 1914, I should say. It's catchy. Riff is good. I like the music video. I find war to be a particularly interesting topic, so this gets a thumbs up all round from me. All right, let's move over to the Democrats' Guide to Rock Music. Hopefully, there's going to be some hot takes from some of the leading political thinkers of our day, such as Noodles from The Offspring and Professor Corey Taylor about what happened in Pennsylvania last night. I'm recording this on Sunday last night. Of course, there were gunshots ringing out at a Trump rally in Pennsylvania, or as the Washington Post described it, loud pops. So... yeah, you guys have probably noticed I've consistently tried to dial back how many political comments I make on the podcast. I think my view is, one, it's too divisive. Two, if a guest comes on the show and the conversation heads that way, then we'll talk about it. I'll mention beforehand what's coming so that, anyone who doesn't want to hear that can, skip that particular part or portion of the podcast. But I just feel like talking about politics in itself is just, it doesn't yield any positive results. Everyone knows what I think. Everyone has their own preconceived ideas, views. Nothing that some fucking random South African is going to say on a metal podcast is going to change anybody's opinion. The only thing that I would say is I think what happened in Pennsylvania is going to be a litmus test to see just how far over the line of sanity some people have now gone. I've mentioned many times before, if this us and them bullshit continues, there's only one way that story plays out. Last night was another step in that direction. And so if there's anyone on the socials that that's, posting about how, we need to take to arms, or, they're so sorry that, Trump, the bullet didn't kill Trump, or, whatever the case may be, crazy shit from either left or right. My view is they need to understand that what they're asking for, what that attitude is going to steer the world towards. They basically need to be happy to live with those consequences. I personally wouldn't be keen on that. I didn't watch the movie. I didn't watch Alex Garland. I didn't watch the Alex Garland movie Civil War and think to myself, that looks like fun. That looks like the kind of life that I'd like to lead. Scrapping for supplies and fucking, having to put a sniper rifle on the top of a roadside fucking curio shop so that, people can kind of live in peace. But apparently there's a lot of people that looked at that and thought, yeah, this would be a right laugh. It would be funny if it weren't so fucking tragic. Okay, let's check what old Blabbermouth has got to share with us. I know that there's a new Nails track doing the rounds, and if we don't find it, I might just go onto YouTube and dig it up for us. If you hear any noise in the background, by the way, that's Paige listening to her god-awful racket, and I don't have the heart to go out and tell her to turn it down. It does seem, though, that the pickings are slim over on Borovoy's daily politics diary. We do have a new single by High Parasite. Now, High Parasite, of course, My Dying Bride, or features My Dying Bride's Aaron Stainthorpe. I mused when the first single came out that this may potentially be one of the reasons why there's some friction in the band at the moment. Seems that many of you guys agreed, and if I look across the rest of the socials, definitely seems like I'm not the only one who thinks this. But that being said, High Parasite, the new band fronted by Aaron Stainthorpe of My Dying Bride, has unveiled its second single, Grave Intentions, in anticipation of the arrival of High Parasite's debut album, Forever We Burn, which is scheduled for release on September the 27th via Candlelight and Spine Farm. The bass player for High Parasite, a gentleman or woman, who knows, named Toombs, says the song is a narrative/warning of how overwhelmingly and dangerously obsessed some can become living vicariously through the internet and social media. The decay of real human interaction and connection, and the reactions to being cut out and blocked from other people's online life. Blah, blah, blah. High Parasite have also revealed plans to bring their particular brand of darkness to Night Rain in Bradford on September the 28th for an exclusive album release performance. And then further on they go to say, I think they go to say, because I'm sure I've seen it announced elsewhere, yes, they do, that Parasite are going to be going out on tour with Cradle of Filth, Butcher Babies, and yeah, Parasite at some point later this year in the UK. Bit of an interesting choice to put Butcher Babies on a show with Cradle of Filth, but then I guess you are probably appealing to a similar audience, and I'm going to be... I hope I don't sound uncouth saying this, but I'd rather watch Butcher Babies than Cradle of Filth for reasons that that I'll keep to myself. Anyway, let's hear what Grave Intention sounds like. This is so Paradise Lost circa late 90s. It's unreal. I mean, this, if you replaced Aaron Stainthorpe with Nick Holmes, that's a Paradise Lost album, and no one would have thought anything other of it. Now, let's get one thing out of the way from the get-go. Would I have a High Parasite album or another album or a proper sequel to My Dying Bride's absolute masterpiece, Immortal Binding, came out earlier this year? There's no question. Immortal Binding I would take 1,000,000 times over this. But this is good. It's entertaining. I mean, it's very, very different to what you would expect from My Dying Bride. That's probably the point. I would also argue that there's something that I'm picking up in this music, and it might just be my imagination, but I feel like whatever is going on here, Aaron seems much more energized, much more enthusiastic about what he's doing here than what he's done in My Dying Bride for a while. Maybe it's just that band needs to go on hiatus for a year or two so that they realize what they're leaving behind. And, absence makes the heart grow fonder, as they say. But, this just re-emphasizes what I said before. I absolutely think High Parasite, or the existence of this project, is one of the reasons why there is tension between members of My Dying Bride. I might be completely wrong, but that's my interpretation of events at the moment. It'll be very interesting to see how this goes over live. I think in front of the mind-melted zombies that go and watch Cradle of Filth, anything would sound good. But I'm only kidding. But it's going to be interesting to see whether they can pull this off live, because it has the potential to be excellent, But you're going to need the right band, the right attitude, and I think Aaron is going to have to come on stage with the right vibe, the right mindset to make this sound good. Okay, I can see in the more videos suggestions they've got the new Nails single, so we're going to wrap up listening to this. The single is called "Give Me the Painkiller," or "Give Me the Painkillers," I think. plural, and it is taken off their forthcoming album. Loved that previous single they released. Have been dying to hear this and have been savoring it for the news rant. So let's hit it, friends. Let's just clear up the confusion. It was "Give Me the Painkiller" rather than "Give Me the Painkillers." So pardon the fuck up there, but yeah, song's decent. I wouldn't say I'm completely blown away by it. Somebody in the comments here describes it as power violence, Motorhead. It actually sounds to me an awful lot like Dysphere. Dysphere without the hooks. There's a bit of a hook here, but if you've listened to any Dysphere records, particularly, I'm trying to remember what the album was called. I think it was the second one they put out. The first song on the album is called Power Load, which is how I remember it. Maybe we'll just listen to that just to clear up any confusion. But yeah, if you listen to that record, you'll know what I mean. Dysphere, I think maybe partly because they've got Thomas Lindberg doing their vocals, and he sounds absolutely killer in that band. They do this style of music far better than Nails are attempting to do, yeah. Far better than the Nails effort, yeah. But like I said, it's not bad. I think maybe in the grand scheme of the album, it'll fit in and be a nice little break from the usual insanity and craziness that you get with every Nails record. But it's getting a cautious thumbs up from me. Since I did mention it, let's actually wrap up with Power Load by Dysphere. This album, my friends, if you haven't heard it yet, it's called Misanthropic Generation. I remember getting this years ago as a promo, and I didn't even realize that Thomas Lindberg, or that this was yet another of his bands. It took me completely by surprise, and I fucking loved it. So just give you 60 seconds to whet your appetites a bit. All right, so Nails isn't quite like this, but you guys catch you understand why I would kind of connect them to that D-beat sound. Dysphere's last record they put out back in 2008, actually, and I know that their Bandcamp is still active. I'm just having a quick gander at their Facebook right now. They're still selling shit, but I don't know whether they're actually recording stuff. But yeah, strongly recommend you check out Misanthropic Generation, a top-notch record if ever there was one. This has been a fun hour spent with you, Legion. I'm going to wrap up for this week. That brings us to the end of another action-packed installment of Into the Necrosphere. Episode 234 is in the books, and if you listened all the way to the end, I really appreciate it, and I really appreciate the support. I will be back next week. My guests, as I mentioned, will be Matt Wilcock and Sam Bean of Werewolves. I'm also going to play us a little song by Werewolves to see us out today. And if you listen to the very end, you will get to hear one of the greatest creative masterstrokes in the history of music. And also one of the proudest moments of my entire life. I am going to head out now, light the barbecue fire, grill me some steak. I won't be watching the Euro finals because soccer is for fucking wimps. And it is a sport that I absolutely detest. I've never been able to get through more than one half of the game without wanting to smash my head to fucking pieces against a wall. But on that poignant and somewhat random note, whatever it is that you are doing and wherever it is that you are, stay safe, stay healthy, and I'll see you bad motherfuckers again next week.
Yeah. Fire!
is a load of shit. I'm sorry. I know there's going to be a lot of people that like it, but that is fucking unlistenable crap as far as I'm concerned.